Hello world, I am Luis Velasquez and welcome to Buildep Tours channel. Buildep Tours is a company whose goal is to promote tourism in Ecuador, but not tourism in the common way, but rather work with local communities, with rural tourism, cultural tourism, so that people from all around the world, expats and Ecuadorians alike, know Ecuador, know deep Ecuador. Of course, always keeping in mind sustainability of the territories and their cultures. For about 1 year, I have been making videos throughout Ecuador to present Ecuador and the beauties that we here usually don't know, so that Ecuadorian people know Ecuador. And so if you speak Spanish, you may visit my other channel, whose link I leave down below in the description. And also, if you want to know more of Ecuador from a local perspective and not just the usual visitor's perspective, just let me know and I'll give you some guidance. And so before continuing, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. And I will, of course, try to give you the best content about Ecuador for you who are interested in this country. Let us pass to the matter that brought us here today, which is the new regulations to the Human Mobility Law of Ecuador, which was presented on the 18th of February 2022, 1 week ago. This law will enter in full force as soon as it enters in the Registro Oficial or Official Gazette or Official Register, which is a government journal for public notices of Ecuadorian laws. That might happen today or next week. We don't really know, but that usually happens very, very quickly. Please note that there are things that still need to be clarified by the Ecuadorian government. And so if you have any questions for further clarification, for preparing another video, just leave your questions or comments in the comment section or contact me via email for further communication. I will talk about the following aspects which are the most relevant in the new regulations. However, if there is any of these matters that you don't really need to know about, you may skip to the part that you're interested in. First, types of visas, temporary and permanent. Secondly, pensioner visa. Third, investor visa. Fourth, professional visa. Fifth, renters visa. And sixth, the new and so expected digital nomad visa. First, types of visas for living in Ecuador. If you're interested in living in Ecuador, the first thing you need to know is that there are two types or general types of visas, which are temporary visas, which are valid for 24 months, and permanent visas, which do not expire. About the temporary residency visas, there are 15 types, which are these. As per the permanent residency visa, for being eligible for it, you must meet at least one of the following requirements. Number one, reaching at least 21 months of continuous residency in Ecuador. Number two, being married to or being in civil union with an Ecuadorian citizen or a person that has a permanent residency visa in Ecuador. Number three, being a minor or disabled person dependent to an Ecuadorian citizen or a foreign person that has a permanent residency visa in Ecuador. And number four, be relative up to the second level of relationship or consanguinity to an Ecuadorian citizen or an expat with a permanent residency in Ecuador. Now, let's talk about those who are coming to Ecuador shortly, want to have a residency visa and are not eligible for a permanent residency visa. In that case, you will have to apply for a temporary one. This visa is valid for 24 months. But once you reach the 21st month after the issuance of the visa, you will be able to apply for the permanent residency visa, as long as you have not left the country for longer than 90 days, because the regulations state that it must be in Ecuador continuously during 21 months. This aspect still needs to be clarified by the Ecuadorian Immigration Ministry, because there is one section in the regulations that indicate that for continuity, they will take into account that the person has not left for more than 90 days during all of the visa. So this is very open to interpretation. At the moment, we will be waiting for further clarification. Now, there are 15 types of temporary residency visas, but I won't talk about all of them here, otherwise this video would be extremely long. If you need assistance or if you need info about a specific type of visa, just let me know in the comment section. What are the general requirements for the temporary residency visa? These general requirements are for all types of temporary residency visas, every one of them. Number one, you must have entered in Ecuador legally. That means that you must have a stamp of entrance of admission in your passport. I know this is almost obvious. However, for example, if you were in Colombia and you came by land and you crossed the bridge in the border but didn't stamp your passport, then you are not legally in Ecuador. Thus, you cannot apply for a visa. Number 2, you must still have days left on your tourist visa or on your tourist permission. If you are from a country like the US or Canada, when you arrive in Ecuador, you will get a stamp in your passport. That stamp will allow you to be here during 90 days. These 90 days can be extended for 90 more days. That's a different process, but that's all you can extend to. As long as you still have days left on your tourist permission, you will be able to apply for a visa. There are some exceptions to this rule. However, this is for a very specific case, and if that is your case, just let me know. 3, you must have a passport that is still valid for at least 6 more months at the moment of getting your visa. And so, if you're coming to Ecuador now, for example, with all of your paperwork for applying for a visa, and your passport has a validity of 9 months left at this moment, I would recommend you to apply for a new one. Otherwise, you might be facing problems because if your passport is not valid for at least 6 more months at the moment of the issuance of the visa, the system won't allow you to get the visa and it will be a big headache. Number 4 in the general requirements, criminal background checks from the country or the countries in which you have lived during the last 5 years. For USA citizens, you will need 2 criminal background checks. One from the federal government, that's from the FBI, and another one from the state. And the institution in your state varies because every state has a different institution. The criminal background checks must have been issued less than 180 days prior to your arrival in Ecuador. So if you get your background check in February 2022 but you come in December 2022, it won't be valid anymore. It doesn't matter if you get the apostilla in November 2022 because what the Ecuadorian government takes into account, it is not the apostilla, it is the document itself. Important remark, depending on the country where you're coming from, you might not need an apostilla but rather a legalization. That's something that depends on the country where you're coming from. If you're coming from the US, you will need an apostilla. If you're coming from Canada, you will need a legalization. 5th general requirement, proof of income. This proof of income is usually bank statements that you get via your online banking or email every month. There might be some new extra regulations about this, but this is usually how it has worked so far. About the amount of income that you need to show, I will talk about that a little bit later in the specific types of visas. And 6th and final general requirement for all types of temporary residency visas. If your documents are in any other language different to Spanish, you will need translation for them. This is usually done here in Ecuador because sometimes even translations to Spanish that are made overseas will need another translation here in Ecuador. Passport doesn't need a translation, naturally, just for the other types of documents. Now, let us go to the specific types of temporary residency visas. Each visa has a document which we could call basis document of the visa, which is the one that you provide in addition to the aforementioned general requirements. This basis document depends on the type of visa, naturally. As I told you, there are 15 types of temporary residence visas, but I will talk here about the most common ones. First, the pensioner visa. The basis document for this visa is a certificate or proof of annuity that you get every month. It can be from Social Security or a private company. Any pension that you will get for a lifetime. That's the basis requirement. And the minimum amount to be eligible for this type of visa is 1,275 a month, granted for a lifetime. I repeat, 1,275, $1,275 a month. But if you're bringing any relatives dependent on your visa, you will need additional $250 per each person that is coming with you as a dependent on your visa. It was $425 until very recently, and so this is one of the most considerable changes, perhaps the most considerable one. If you wonder, I don't really think there will be a significant change, at least in the next 3-4 years. And if there is a change, it won't be beyond $1,500 in the next 3 years, certainly. Number 2, the investor visa, for which the basis document is proof of investment in Ecuador. There are 6 types of investment which would make you eligible for this visa. However, the 2 main are investment in a bank, like in a certificate of deposit, for minimum 100 basic salaries, which is equal to $42,500. Or number 2, purchase in real estate valued for a minimum $42,500. If you're purchasing property to the name of more than one person, then the share of the applicant person, or if both are applying, each person's share must be of minimum $42,500. The other types of investments are for people who have shares with Ecuadorian companies or projects of the Ecuadorian government. I haven't seen those so far, so I really won't talk about them. Number 3, the professional visa, for which the basis document is basically a college degree. If you have an associate's degree, you might be eligible for this visa, but in my experience, it is a matter of luck. You would need to find a career here in Ecuador that is almost the same in the plan of the studies. But if you have bachelor's, you can almost take it for granted that you will be able to get this visa. For this visa, you don't need to work in Ecuador, you don't need to apply for a job or have a contract, just have the degree and have it registered with the Ecuadorian institution called CENESID. This visa is a little bit more complex because besides the college degree or university degree, you will also require other documents like the transcripts and something called Mode of Study Letter, which is a document issued by the university stating that your studies were on campus or at distance. If you want more detailed information about this type of visas, just let me know in the comments and I will prepare a video for that. Number 4, the rentist visa. This visa is for people who get income from abroad and can use it for a living in Ecuador. The minimum income must be of $1,275 a month, same as with the pensioner visa. However, this income must come only from certain sources of income. For example, a leased property abroad or shares that give you at least $1,275 a month. The basis document for this type of visa will vary depending on the source of income. For example, if you have a leased property, you will need 2 basis documents, which are the title deed to your name and the lease agreement, which proves that you are getting this income at least for more than 1 year from now on. And number 5, the so long expected digital nomad visa, also known as rentist visa for remote workers. This visa is for people who get income from abroad through work for an international company or an international platform, or people who own their company located overseas and get minimum $1,275 a month. However, the applicant can also show savings for minimum $30,600 a year, which would be equal to $1,275 during 24 months or 2 years. The basis document for this visa is a certificate of being working for a company abroad or owning a company. This will still need further clarification from the Ecuadorian government once the regulations enter in full force. Important note, this visa will be available only to citizens from countries from a special list that the Ecuadorian government will soon launch. However, I know that the US, Canada and the UK will be on the list. We need to wait to see what the other countries are. To end this part of specific types of visas, you may also apply for a student visa. However, the student visa will be granted only for the term of your studies. For example, if you are getting enrolled for a course of Spanish in Ecuador and it lasts only 6 months, you will get the student visa for 6 months. And in that case, I would recommend you just to get the tourist visa and get the extension. It would be the same and actually cheaper and easier. But if you're getting enrolled in a university or any other type of educational institution, you're also eligible for it and for a longer time. By the way, if you want to apply for this type of visa through a Spanish course or Quechua course, please note that the institution in which you're getting enrolled must be recognized, acknowledged by the Ecuadorian government for this type of visa. It is worth mentioning that for relatives or dependents, the same general requirements that I mentioned at the beginning will be needed. However, in addition to that, the basis document for the dependent visa is the document that certifies, that proves the link to the primary applicant. For example, for spouses, the basis document is a certificate of marriage. And this marriage certificate will need to be a new one. It must have been issued less than 100 days ago prior to your arrival in Ecuador. It must be a recent one. So you would need to get a certified copy. The process, how you get a certified copy, depends on your county or your state or your province, depending on the country where you're coming from. For children, the birth certificate would be the basis document, and for parents, the basis document would also be the birth certificate. These documents will also need to be apostilled or legalized, depending on the country where you're coming from. That would be the basics you need to know for the new regulations about visas in Ecuador. Of course, there are more details that will be clarified by the Ecuadorian government once the new regulations enter in full force. But this is the basics for meeting the basic criteria for eligibility of a visa in Ecuador. Remember that if you are a US or Canadian citizen, when you enter here, you will get a stamp in your passport, which will allow you to be here for 90 days. These 90 days can be extended, and that's all you need. You don't need to ask for special permission or a tourist visa before coming, as you will get it automatically upon arrival at the airport. But this is not valid for all of the countries. I will put here on the screen the countries that need to ask for a tourist visa or visitor's visa before coming to Ecuador. I will also leave this list on the description of this video in case I need to update it later. If your country is not on the list, that means that with your passport you're able to fly into Ecuador and get a 90-day permission of stay upon arrival. Of course, there is more information about the new regulations, but that would be specific information like the citizenship. If you would like to know about this, just let me know in the comment section and I will prepare a video about this. If you found this information useful, please like the video, subscribe to this channel and click on the bell for getting the alerts when I launch a new video. Remember, if you have any other questions, just put them in the comment section. Or if there are any aspects of life and culture in Ecuador you would like to know about, just let me know and I will prepare those videos for the channel. If you would like further assistance or direct communication, you may send me an email, bildevtours@gmail.com. Thank you very much for watching this video to this point and see you soon. Hasta la vista.